Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back for part 6 of my Dominaria United set review for Limited and Constructed. This episode is covering all the multicolored cards, so this should be pretty exciting because a lot of the multicolored cards are pretty powerful this time around for this set. So we're in the home stretch. Let's go ahead and dive right into it and see what we have. The first card is Aaron Benelia's Ruin for 2 white and a black. It's a legendary creature, Phyrexian human. 3/3 power and toughness. It has menace, and if you pay 1 white and 1 black and tap it and sacrifice another creature, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It's pretty powerful ability. This card is this card's pretty solid. It fits into a white-black sacrifice theme. We saw a little bit of that in some of the white cards and also some of the black cards we've previewed already. So pretty powerful. I do like this. I think this is a pretty decent card we're going to see in Limited and in Constructed. The fact that it pumps your team by sacrificing a creature, that's pretty good. I think I'm going to give it a high rating for Limited. I really like it. I think it could be pretty powerful, and also has kind of an evasion ability with menace. Give it a mid rating for Constructed. I think it'll see Constructed play, but it'll be in certain select decks and stuff like that. So pretty powerful. And can't wait to try this out. A well-designed card. Next up is Baird, Argivian Recruiter for 1 red and 1 white. It's a legendary creature, human soldier. 2/2 power and toughness. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature with power greater than its base power, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So this appears to be one of the payoffs for the enlist ability. I did some rules checking, and when you enlist a creature and you modify its power to be something higher than its base power, that effect doesn't go away until your cleanup step, which is the second part of the end phase, end step. So you'll get, if you enlisted a creature and you have this creature buried on the battlefield, at the beginning of your end step, you'll get a trigger out of this and get the white soldier creature token. So that's a nice payoff for enlist. Probably something I'd be interested in exploring. Because of that, I think I'm going to give it a mid rating for Limited, and I think I'll do the same for Constructed. This has the ability to be useful in other things aside from enlist. Putting a +1/+1 counter on a creature, pumping it up with a pump spell, or something like that, or even having anthem-like cards like Glorious Anthem or Wedding Announcement, the backside of that, pumping it up. So I think those are ways to get this token trigger out of it. So give it a mid for across the board for Limited and Constructed for Baird. Next up we have Balmor, Battle Mage Captain for 1 blue and 1 red. Legendary creature, Bird Wizard, 1/3 power and toughness. It has flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. Another solid card. Another solid way to get some max value out of instants and sorceries you have. Kind of reminds me of like a pseudo prowess, but not with the toughness benefit, but still pretty decent. You attack with a force with this on the battlefield, and then before damage you play an instant sorcery. All of a sudden you've messed up your opponent's calculations for damage. So this can be pretty solid. I'll also give this a mid-range or mid-level grade for both Limited and Constructed. It's definitely a playable card for both of those. Moving on to Vortic, Bone Rattle. Legendary creature, Troll Shaman. Sorry, it goes for 4 colorless, 1 black and 1 green. Has a power and toughness 4/4. Has domain. When Vortic Bone Rattle enters the battlefield, if you cast it, choose target creature card in your graveyard. Return that card to the battlefield if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So basically, it's got the domain ability. It's going to be better if you have all 5 basic land types. But if you do, that means any creature card in your graveyard with mana value 5 or less, you can throw back onto the battlefield. If it has mana value 6 or more, put it into your hand. That's pretty good. And this has got a decent body for it. I like it. I give it a mid rating for limited, and same thing for constructed. I kind of want to give it a high rating for limited, but because it's got the 6 mana value, I think that's probably the only thing that's keeping me from giving it a high rating. If it was 3 and a black and a green, I might give it a high rating. But I think mid is good for another uncommon creature. I noticed the power levels of these legendary uncommon creatures for the set are really powerful. I mean, they might be rares in other sets, so some pretty good stuff here. Moving forward to the next uncommon, we have Elas Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, for 1 white and 1 black. It's a legendary creature, Phyrexian Core Cleric, 2/2 power and toughness with Death Touch. That's pretty good. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life, and whenever another creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Yeah, this is another cool card. Fits really nicely into a creature-heavy deck. So you bring in a bunch of creatures into play, gain a life off it, and then if you happen to have this deck being with a bunch of creatures has a bunch of sacrifice outlets or creatures dying with death triggers, you're going to get the benefit of the death triggers as well. So I think this is pretty powerful. That could be something that can be abused quite a bit if you build your deck right. It's got Death Touch as well. That's pretty good. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited. That might be a little generous, but the fact that it has Death Touch, you're going to gain life every time you cast, or every time a creature enters the battlefield under your control. And every time one of your creatures die, another creature that is, your opponent's going to lose life. So it's kind of got the, it's got that gain drain strategy built into it. I'll give it a mid rating for constructed. Just due to the fact of sheer competition for a 2-drop spot. Other than that, I'd probably give it a high rating, but it's got a lot of competition for the slot in a deck that it'll be occupying. But if you can find a way to work it in, yeah, it'll more power to you. I think it could be pretty solid in Commander as well. So something to think about when you're building your Commander decks. Next up is Garna, Bloodfist of Keld, for 1 black and 2 red. So that's a total mana value of 4. Legendary creature, human berserker with a 4/3 power and toughness. Whenever another creature you control dies, draw a card if it was attacking. Otherwise, Garna, Bloodfist of Keld deals 1 damage to each opponent. So basically, if you're attacking with a creature and it dies, you draw a card. Otherwise, if your creatures die, it just deals 1 damage to each opponent. This would also go really well in a sacrifice deck. Aside from just creatures dying in combat, this could be abused in a sacrifice style deck. So pretty decent. And the fact that you get to draw a card when one of your creatures dies when it's attacking, that card you draw is kind of like a replacement for the loss of that creature. It could go really well with tokens too, so something to keep in mind. Yeah, let's see here. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited. I like the design of this card. It's got 2 upsides to it. When your creatures die, and I don't see any downsides when your creatures die. So the only thing is it just has to be another creature. It can't be Garna. So that's pretty much it. Give it a mid rating for constructed. Once again, just due to the fact that there's a lot of 4-drops you can choose from. This wouldn't be at the top of the list, but I could see it built in a commander deck. or even as a commander, who knows. Next uncommon is Lagamos, Hand of Hatred, for one a black and a red. So that's 3 total mana value. Legendary creature, Human Shaman, 1/3 power and toughness. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. That's pretty good. Tap to search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if 5 or more creatures died this turn. Not bad. That could be useful if you're playing a heavy sacrifice deck. Nice. So actually, this has some nice synergy with the previous card, Garna. If you had her on the battlefield and Lagamos and you attacked with a red elemental, and it dies, you draw a card. Otherwise, if it survived to the end step, then you could sack it and your opponent would take a point of damage if you have Garna with this. So this has some nice synergy with that card. I'll give it a mid rating for limited, and only reason I give it mid rating is because of the fairly steep cost to tap and search your library for a card ability, and it's just a 1/3 for 3. So could be it's I think that's the only real drawback. Constructed, go mid as well. I think maybe just having one of these in the deck or something like that would be fine. But if you were to do a build around with this could probably be a little stronger. But we'll go mid across the board for it. Moving on to the next uncommon, we have Nail, Avazoa Aeronaut, for 2, a green and a blue. It's a legendary creature, Elf Scout, 2/4 power and toughness with flying. Has domain. Whenever Nail, Avazoa Aeronaut deals combat damage to a player, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. Put up to 1 of them on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Then if there are 5 basic land types among lands you control, draw a card. Interesting. Yeah, so this is going to pay off if you have the 5 basic land types. So it's pretty much, if you have full domain and it deals combat damage to your opponent, look at the top 5 cards and draw a card. Otherwise, look at the top 5 cards and put one of them on top of your library. So not bad, pretty decent. I'll give it a mid rating for both limited and constructed. The big payoff is if you have full domain for this. So you're going to want to have all 5 basic land types to get the most value out of this card. So mid across the board. Next creature to go after is Nahal, the Storm Runner. Is that how you pronounce it? For 2 blue and a red. Legendary creature, a Freet Wizard. It has a 5/4 power and toughness. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. Whenever Nahal, the Storm Runner, attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Yeah, that's pretty good. Wow. Pretty decent. It's a 5/4 for 5. Sorceries you can cast as instants, and then if you pay 2, so you got to pay 2 to make your instants or sorcery spells copy. Not bad. I'm gonna go medium. We'll go mid level for this card, both limited and constructed. I mean, the trend I'm seeing is these uncommons are pretty powerful. Like I said, they might be rares in other sets, but at an uncommon spot, they're pretty decent. Some of them are almost worthy of a high rating, but they're definitely solid mid-level cards for sure. Stuff I'd be happy to have in my decks if I was playing these colors. So, decent card. Next uncommon is Queen Alanel of Rudok. for 1 green and 2 white, legendary creature, Elf Noble. Star for its power and toughness. It says Queen Alanel of Rudak's power and toughness. Let me reread that. Queen Alanel of Rudak's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. Okay. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus 1 white soldier creature token are created instead. So yeah, this has definitely got written all over it. Play tokens with this card, and of course it spits out a soldier token to go with it. So yeah, I like it. In a token deck, I'd give this a pretty solid rating. Equal number of creatures you control. Yeah, I like it. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited, and I think I'll go mid-level for constructed. That might be a little low on it for constructed. I don't know. We'll see. But I think because of what it can do, if it was in a dedicated token deck and constructed, I'd give it a high rating for sure. And in limited, you're going to be casting a lot of creatures in this type of deck anyway. So she could enter the battlefield as a pretty big creature. And then if you have token generators in your deck, even better. So and that'll just add to her power and toughness. So pretty solid. Yeah, I think I'll go with that for limited and constructed. Next one is Radha, Coalition Warlord for 2, a red and a green. Legendary creature, Elf Warrior, 3/3 power and toughness. Has domain. Whenever Radha, Coalition Warlord becomes tapped, another target creature you control gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control. So, let's see here. Becomes tapped. Another target creature you control gets +X/+X. So even in a 2-color deck, this could be interesting. You attack with Radha, and just in a red-green deck, you can give another creature +2/+2. If you have full domain, you'll be giving another creature +5/+5. That's pretty good. Pretty solid card. It's definitely a card I'd be drafting and putting in my limited deck. So I'll go mid-range, mid-level for it. I think the only reason I'd give it mid instead of high is just due to its mana value cost. Is it's up there. And I'll do the same thing for constructed. It's a solid card. Definitely go well in an elf deck or a commander deck centered around these colors or that tribe. So yeah, that's a solid legendary creature. Next one is Raph, Weatherlight Stalwart for a white and a blue. Legendary creature, human wizard, 1/3 power and toughness. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures you control. If you do, draw a card. You can pay 3 and 2 white. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Not bad. I don't know if it's as powerful as some of the other ones, just in raw power that we've seen, as some of the other legendary creatures we just have gone through, but so whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may tap up to 2 untapped creatures you control to draw a card. So I think this works maybe in a token control deck of some type. I could see it being played in something like that. Something that's spits out tokens and has a heavy control aspect, which allows you to tap them to draw cards and then use your mana to make your team bigger and attack with vigilance. So I'll give it a mid rating for both limited and constructed. It definitely has some powerful potential to it in whatever type of deck you put it in. Moving on to the next uncommon is Rona, Shieldred's Faithful for 1, a blue and 2 black. Legendary creature, human wizard. Has a 3/4 power and toughness. Whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, each opponent loses 1 life. You may cast Rona's Shieldred's Faithful from your graveyard by discarding 2 cards in addition to paying its other costs. Yeah, this fits in nicely. I think there's a Dimir control deck that we're going to see, possibly for limited and constructed and standard. This plays nicely into that. yeah, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery in a control deck and you make your opponent lose life, yeah, they're going to be paying a price. Pretty decent. I'm going to give it a mid rating for both limited and constructed. I like it. I like the idea behind it. I think it's pretty solid. So playing in a mid-range to control heavy deck, you'll get some good benefits out of this card. Moving on to the next one, we got Rulik Mons, Warren Chief, for 1, a red, and 2 green. Legendary creature Goblin, 3/3 power and toughness. Has menace. Whenever Rulik Mons Rulik Mons Warren Chief attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you didn't put a card onto the battlefield tapped this way, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. Yeah, that's pretty good. So whenever it attacks, you're either going to get a land card onto the battlefield tapped or create a token. And it has menace. So I think the only drawback is, for its power and toughness, it's less than what its mana value is. But that's being greedy on my part. I think if it was cheaper costed card, it would be a rare. I'm going to give it a limited rating of mid, and I'll do the same for constructed. Continues the trend of powerful uncommons. I mean, these are solid cards, so they borderline between mid and just right on that border between mid and high. So pretty solid. Next uncommon is Tatyova, Steward of Tides, for 2 green and a blue. Legendary creature, Merfolk Druid, 3/3 power and toughness. Land creatures you control have flying. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with haste. It's still a land. Yeah, this is pretty cool. This definitely fits into the it looks like a green-blue ramp style deck. So you're going to want to get lands out pretty quickly, and then to get the 7 lands pretty fast, and then you can make one of your lands a 3/3 elemental creature. And because of her ability that gives land creatures flying, that's pretty solid. So I like this card. It's got a good cost to power ratio as well. Good value there. So I'm going to give it a mid rating in limited. And I think for constructed, I'll do the same. I want to give it high, but not sure yet. I want to see how it plays out first. So mid for limited, and a really high-end mid-level rating for constructed. I'd almost give it a high rating in constructed, but it's right at that border for me. So we'll go mid across the board for her. Next one is Tori de Evenant Fury Rider, for 1, 2 red and a white. It's a legendary creature, human knight, 3/3 power and toughness with vigilance and trample. It's pretty good. Whenever Tori de Avenant Fury Rider attacks, all other attacking creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Other red attacking creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. Untap each other white attacking creature you control. Huh, interesting. If you were playing all gold red-white cards, it would get both of these abilities. That's pretty solid. Yeah, this just screams aggro for me. I'm going to give it a mid rating for both limited and constructed again. Really solid, aggressive card. Be happy to take it in my limited decks. For constructed, I think that'd be awesome in some kind of Boros aggro style deck. And even for some kind of commander deck, I could just see a legion of soldiers and armies and stuff that you have attacking your opponents, and this pumping up your team. So pretty solid. Definitely definitely baseline mid, and could be higher if it's built in a deck right. Next uncommon is Tura, Kenrud Sky Knight, for 2 a white and 2 blue. Legendary creature, human knight, 3/3 power and toughness. It's got flying. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Wow, that's pretty solid. Wow, and it's got evasion for 5. You know what? I'm going to give it a high rating for limited. I think this could be pretty strong in limited. this be at the top of your mana curve. But if you build a white-blue control deck with a bunch of instants and sorceries and ways to create creature tokens and stuff like that, this just adds to it. And it's got a decent rate, 3/3 power and toughness for flying, limited. It can be tough to get rid of. Give it a mid rating in constructed. It's got competition in constructed due to all the other cards available in constructed card pool, but still pretty solid. I mean, this is a creature you'll have to pay attention to and can't take lightly. Moving on to the next uncommon is Urg, Spawn of Turg, for 2 black and a green. It's a legendary creature frog beast with star 5, star power, 5 toughness. Urg, Spawn of Turg, power is equal to the number of land cards in your graveyard. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may put that card into your graveyard. Sacrifice a land, you gain 2 life. Interesting. Yeah, not a bad card. This has got ways to fuel its power built into itself. You can look at the beginning of your upkeep. You can manipulate your draw. If you don't like what you're going to draw, you just throw it into your graveyard. And its power is going to just get bigger if you put lands in your graveyard. Really good. I'm going to give this a mid rating for limited. But for constructed, this card is a long-awaited addition to the Slogurk decks, the Simic or Sultai Slogurk decks. This is an awesome card to go with it, and this just fits in nicely with it. So I'm going to go with give it a high rating, just due to the fact that there's some existing cards that scream for this to be part of their deck, and it goes really good with Slogurk the Overslime from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. And there's another card from that's a frog from Crimson Vow that also will benefit from this card being in a constructed deck. Commander or standard, you can make it work. And that being Grolnok the Omnivore, which is a card that whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards, and then whenever a permanent card is put it into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. So with Urg, when you sacrifice a land or put a permanent card into your graveyard from your library, you'll get the trigger for Grolnok with it, and you can play lands and cast spells from among cards you own in exile with the croak counters on them, since Grolnok does that with permanents. And Grolnok is a frog, and so is Urg, so that's pretty solid. Check it out. There's some nice energies with this card, and I think it's worthy of the high rating for that. Pretty solid. Next up is Vohar, Vodalian Desecrator, for 1 blue and a black. It's a legendary creature, Phyrexian Merfolk Wizard, 1/2 power and toughness. Tap to draw a card, then discard a card. If you discarded an instant or sorcery card this way, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. You can pay 2, sacrifice Vohar, Vodalian Desecrator. You may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead, activate only as a sorcery. So it has a way to get back a card you discarded with its first ability built into it. But that's pretty interesting. I think this could be pretty solid in constructed. For limited, I'll give it a mid rating. It's gonna be hit or miss with it in limited. You just gotta have to have enough instants of sorceries in your deck in order to get the best payoff for it in limited. For constructed, I think I'll also give it a mid rating, but it's at the high end of the mid level. I almost want to give it a high rating, but it's just a little clunky enough due to the fact that you have to sacrifice it for a second ability in order to cast an instant sorcery spell from your graveyard. However, if you have Lear Drowned Disciple, this plays nicely with it. You don't have to worry about sacrificing Bohar. And the cards you put in your graveyard, you'll be able to recast due to Lear's ability. So something to think about for a standard deck. And it also can be pretty solid in Commander too. Just needs the right build around. So, cool card. This is our last uncommon. Zar Ojenin, Scion of Efrava. It's a full mouthful of words. For 3 and a green and a white. Legendary creature, Cat Warrior. 4/4 power and toughness. Has domain. Whenever Zar Ojenin, Scion of Efrava becomes tapped, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with toughness less than the number of basic land types among lands you control. Let's see here. So it looks like your toughnesses on your creatures would cap out at 5, but still pretty good if you're able to pump your smaller teams. Your smaller creatures on your team with toughness less than the number of basic land. This could go really well in a token deck that's got the 5 basic land types. And of course by itself, it's it could even give a bonus to itself too, at least once. So yeah, it's a decent rate for 5. It's a 4/4, and if you got a bunch of tokens, you're gonna make those really big. Pretty solid. I'll give it a mid rating for limited and constructed. Powerful uncommon. I think next up we're going to be hitting the rares. Yeah, we're into the rares now. So let's see what we have here. We have Astor, Bearer of Blades for 2, a red and a white. Legendary creature, human warrior. 4/4 power and toughness. When Astor, Bearer of Blades enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal an equipment or vehicle card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Equipment you control have Equip 1. Vehicles you control have Crew 1. So I haven't seen many vehicles so far, or equipment. Of course, we haven't covered artifacts yet, but interesting card. I think this could be pretty solid. More so in constructed, but I'll give it a mid rating for limited for now. It's got a decent rate though. 4/4 power and toughness for 4, plus it's lets you dig and put an equipment or a vehicle into your hand. Yeah, that's pretty decent. Give it a high rating for constructed though. I think you can do a lot with this, and would go pretty nicely in any of an equipment heavy or vehicle deck. Kind of a throwback to the Mardu vehicles from the Kaladesh block for standard. So decent card. Like the design for it. Well, look who's back. After years and years away, this guy shows his ugly face again. Urte, Resurrected for 2, a blue and a black. Legendary creature, Phyrexian human wizard. 3/2 power and toughness. For those of you who don't know, Urte was around during the original invasion block. It's one of the original crew members of the Weatherlight. And of course, he became corrupted and fell under the control of the Phyrexians, and looks like this guy is back to cause more trouble. So he's got Flash. When Urte Resurrected enters the battlefield, choose up to 1. Counter target spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card. Destroy another target creature or planeswalker, its controller draws a card. Interesting. So it's either a counter spell, lets them draw a card, or destroy a creature or planeswalker, its controller draws a card. Maybe in some desperate moments you could use it on your own stuff, but yeah, I think it's useful. I give it a mid rating for limited. Same thing for constructed. I don't like the fact that your opponents get to draw cards off that, so although it would probably be really powerful than super powerful, but it is a rare, so maybe it should be justified. But I'll give it a mid rating for limited and constructed. If it didn't have that benefit your opponents get, the letting them draw cards, I'd give it a high rating, but because of that, that's kind of the knock on it. So we'll go mid for that. Next rare is Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief for 1 green and a blue. Legendary creature, Fairy Rogue, 2/1 power and toughness. It has flying. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, Gleeful Spell Thief, you may copy that spell that targets. I'm sorry, the copy targets Ivy. So let's reread that. Whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief, you may copy that spell. The copy targets Ivy. So yeah, it's kind of a selective. I guess the idea is that she steals good spells that you or your opponents cast, and she can steal that spell to target her, and she gets a benefit as well. So nice little design there. Cool little flavor. Yeah, decent card. Could be something that sways the flow of a game in your favor. I think I'll give it a mid rating for limited, and I think I'll do the same for constructed. Not too sure how often you're going to get the benefit of this, but if you have a deck built around this type of ability, this actually could be pretty cool. So, you know what? Actually, now that I think of it, though, there is a deck you could build with this. So it's something to think about. In a specialized deck, it might be worthy of a high rating. So, but I think I'll stick with mid for both limited and constructed for her. Next one is Jorah, Ageless Innovator for 1 blue and 1 red. Legendary creature, Human Artificer, 2/3 power and toughness. You can tap her to put 2 ingenuity counters on Jorah, Ageless Innovator. Then you may put an artifact card with mana value X or less from your hand onto the battlefield, where X is the number of ingenuity counters on Jorah. Interesting. Kind of like, yeah, interesting. So if you have a nice curve of artifact spells in your hand, you can just keep tapping her to put those onto the battlefield from your hand without casting them. So interesting card. It's definitely looks like a build around though. I'll go mid for limited because we don't know what kind of artifacts we're going to see in limited and how often you'll get them. So, but it's pretty solid. I'll give it a high rating for constructed though. It has a lot of promise. You just keep putting counters on here late in the game. If you're lucky enough, you could be throwing out Darksteel Colossus or Blightsteel Colossus or something like that. So could be pretty crazy, get pretty nuts with Jorah. So pretty cool design. Next up is King Darren the 18th, legendary creature, human soldier, 2/3 power and toughness. It costs 1 a green and a white. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. You can pay 3 a green and a white to put a +1/+1 counter on King Darien and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Sacrifice King Darien. Creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So this is definitely designed for. I mean, he's designed to pump your team, but he's really powerful and most effective in a creature token deck. So I'd give that a solid plus for him for a creature token deck. I'm going to give it a high rating for limited, and I think I'll do the same thing for constructed, just due to the fact that it's a 3-drop, 2/3, pumps your creatures to +1/+1. But if you're playing creature tokens, it's even better. So there's just upside to it. So I like it for a high rating across the board for both of those. Next one is Maria, Scholar of Antiquity for 1 a red and a green. Legendary creature, Elf Artificer, 3/3 power and toughness. Tap an untapped non-token artifact you control to add green. Tap 2 untapped non-token artifacts you control. Exile the top card of your library you may play at this turn. Interesting. So a red-green Elf Artificer. That's not something you see every day. Yet that lets you tap artifacts to add green to your mana pool. So it's kind of a artifact elf. in a sense. Um, yeah. I think there's a lot of uses for this card. Pretty solid. I'm gonna give it a mid rating in limited, just due to the fact, once again, we don't know how often you're gonna be able to get artifacts for her. But for constructed, I'll go high. I think there's a good slot for it in constructed, and where you can build around it. Goes pretty well in Commander. All those mana rocks you have. If you happen to have a Soul Ring in the battlefield, but you need green and another green, and you don't have it, you could tap the Soul Ring for green. So that's just one scenario for you. So pretty cool card. Pretty neat the way it works with artifacts, and decent rate at a 3-drop for 3/3. So I like the card. Next one is Namada, Primeval Warden for 2 black and green, legendary creature tree folk, 3/4 power and toughness with reach. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. When you do, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. Nice. Pay 1 green and sacrifice a sapling. Namada Primeval Warden gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Or you can pay 1 and 1 black and sacrifice 2 saplings to draw a card. So, yeah, this is interesting. So, kill your opponent's creatures and make saplings from that. And then you sack those saplings to make Namada bigger, or sack 2 to draw a card. So, this is a sapling token lord in a sense. So, and it's got reach too. So, that's pretty solid. Yeah, I like it. I like the card. I think there's some good potential for it. I'll give it a high rating in limited, mainly because of the death trigger spits out creature tokens for you, and it has reach. That's pretty decent. So I'll do the same thing for constructed. I think it's just got upside for it. I think it would make a pretty cool commander too. So yeah, nice card. Next one is Rada Drabik of Urborg. 2 white and a black. It's a legendary creature, zombie wizard, 3/3 power and toughness. Has vigilance and ward 2. Other zombies you control have vigilance. And whenever another legendary creature you control dies, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary, and it's a 2/2 black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. Interesting. It's kind of cool. It's kind of like a necromancer that brings back famous legendary creatures from the dead, and you're able to use them again. And they have vigilance. Yeah, that's pretty solid. I like it. I'm going to give it a mid rating for limited, and I'll give it a high rating for constructed. This is definitely a card that fits in perfectly in constructed deck, mainly probably a commander deck. So probably want to work that into your commander decks. And then if you're able to build something effective like that in standard or pioneer or modern, yeah, more power to you. It's definitely built for benefiting zombies. So strong card. I like it. Next one is Rivaz of the Claw for 1, a black and a red. Legendary creature Viashino Warlock. 3/3 power and toughness with menace. You can tap it to add 2 mana of any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast dragon creature spells. That's solid. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard. That's cool. So it gives once a turn gives your dragons flashback from the graveyard. Whenever you cast a dragon creature spell from your graveyard, it gains when this creature dies, exile it. Nice. Yeah, this is a solid card, and there appears to be a few dragons in this set. And it's yeah, I think it's going to have a better impact in constructed than limited. So I'll give it a mid rating for limited, but I'll give it a high rating for constructed. And of course, this is going to shine in a dragon tribal deck or a commander deck. So pretty solid card. I'd love to have this in my deck. Next one is Sten Paranoid Partisan. It's for 1 white and 1 blue. Legendary creature human wizard, 2/2 power and toughness. As Sten Paranoid Partisan enters the battlefield, choose a card type other than a creature or land. Spells you cast of this chosen type cost 1 less to cast. Pay 1, a white and a blue. Exile Sten. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. Yeah, okay. Exile Sten. Return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Okay. For some reason I was thinking it said opponent's control. Yeah, misread that, but I fixed it. So yeah, not bad. Pretty solid card. You can reset what cards you choose too, so that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, strong card. And then spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. Yeah, that's decent. I think this will be more powerful in a constructed deck, but I'll give it... No, you know, I think I'm going to give it a high rating in limited. If you build your limited decks right, this could be pretty powerful. It could be a problem for your opponent. Plus, you could block. As long as you have mana, you can block endlessly and just blink it out of combat and return it at the beginning of that end step. So, good card. I'll go high for both limited and constructed for it. That's a solid card. I like it. Alrighty, so now we're moving on to the Mythics. This should be pretty cool. First up is a Johnny Sleeper Agent. For 1, a green, a hybrid Phyrexian mana of Phyrexian green or Phyrexian white and white. Let's see here. It has completed. I'm sorry. It's a legendary planeswalker, Johnny, with 4 loyalty, and it has completed, which says, hybrid, can be paid with green, white, or 2 life. If life was paid, this planeswalker enters the battlefield with 2 fewer loyalty counters on it. Interesting. So if you paid life, it comes in as a 2 loyalty. It says +1, a Johnny. Reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or planeswalker card, put it into your hand. Otherwise, you may put it on the bottom of your library. You can -3 a Johnny and distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among up to 3 target creatures. They gain vigilance until end of turn. And then you can -6 it and get an emblem with whenever you cast a creature or planeswalker, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. So that's pretty decent. Sad to see Johnny as a sleeper agent though. It's my favorite planeswalker. Ow, I'm sad. Not bad. Yeah, pretty decent. I'll give it a high rating for limited and constructed. There's a lot of stuff you can do with it. So pump your team, refill the top card of your library, put it in your hand or put it on the bottom of your library. So it's a creature or planeswalker, put it in your hand, otherwise put it on the bottom of your library. Yeah. So this is going to want to be in a creature heavy deck with planeswalkers or creatures. So solid card. Darn it, Johnny. Why'd you have to switch sides? But oh well. Next up is Joda the Unifier. It costs Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, green. Legendary creature, human wizard, 5/5 power and toughness. Legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Nice. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Yeah, so this is a legendary lord in a sense. Pumps up your team, equal to the number of legendary creatures you control, and then whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, you can exile cards from the top of your library until you reveal another legendary non-land card with lesser mana value and cast it for free. So yeah, that's solid. Unfortunately, well, I don't know how many legends you're going to be able to have in a limited deck. I'm going to give it a mid rating just due to the fact it's the unknown there, but if you're able to build a legendary deck out of limited cards, more power to you. That'll be solid. I'm gonna give it an epic rating for constructed though. I think that's, you build a legendary deck with this and you're just gonna be casting stuff for free and they're all gonna be big. So solid card. I think it's worth the 5 mana that you pay for it. 5/5. Amazing commander. Yeah, I guess that's why he's called Joda the Unifier. He just brings all the colors together. So really solid card. Epic for sure. Next mythic is Rith Liberated Primeval for 2, a red, a green, and a white. Legendary creature dragon, 5/5 power and toughness. Has flying and ward 2. Other dragons you control have ward 2. Nice, that's solid. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls was dealt excess damage this turn, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. Nice. So if you smash one of your opponent's creatures with a larger creature, more than enough to kill it, you end up creating a dragon token. Same thing with the planeswalker, and the fact that your dragons have ward. So this definitely goes into a dragon deck. Ideal commander for a dragon deck. So pretty solid. Yeah, I'm going to give this a high rating for limited, and I'll give it a high rating for constructed as well. You can get some pretty good use out of this in limited, even though there's not a lot. You might not have a lot of dragons. As long as you're dealing excess damage, you're going to be able to create red dragon creature tokens. Plus, they're going to gain ward and have flying. So, same deal in constructed. This looks like this just definitely goes in the dragon tribal deck and really shines in a commander deck. So, excellent addition to the commander format. Next mythic is Shana Purifying Blade for a green, a white, and a blue. Legendary creature, human warrior. 3/3 power and toughness with lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay X where X, or if you do, draw X cards where X can't be greater than the amount of life you gain this turn. So even with just her alone, you can pay 3 and draw 3 cards with just based off her lifelink ability. That's really solid. Yeah, if you have ways to keep her alive, you're gonna be in good shape. I'm gonna give it a high rating in limited, just due to the fact that it's possible it could die easier in limited, and I'll give it a high rating in constructed too. I mean, you might be able to protect it a little easier in constructed, but in the right deck, I mean, yeah, you could draw a ton of cards off that and stuff. So, pretty decent though. I almost want to give it epic, but not quite yet. Just not quite, but pretty close. That's a powerful card though. So, I'd love to have it in the deck. Next mythic is Solkanar the Tainted, for 2, a blue, black, and a red. Legendary creature, elemental demon. 5/5 power and toughness. And it says at the beginning of your end step, choose one that hasn't been chosen. You can draw a card. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Solkanar the Tainted deals 3 damage up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker. Or you can exile Solkanar, then return it to the battlefield under an opponent's control. That's a tainted card. Man, that last bullet point is last option just really spoils everything. But you get some value out of it. So I'm gonna give it a mid rating for limited. I just can't get past the fact that your opponent's gonna get it. And same thing for constructed. That's kind of a deal breaker. Yeah, it's got all this good stuff, but then at the end, it's like, hey, I'm done. I'm going to go to your opponent's side now and do the same thing. So, I mean, yeah, you could get it back, but you might be dead by the time it comes back to you. So that's tough. I'd have to see how it plays out. So without any context to know how it plays, it's hard to say. So I think mid for now, but might be worth revisiting later. Next mythic is Soul of Windgrace for 1, a black, red, and a green. Legendary creature, cat avatar, 5/4 power and toughness. Whenever Soul of Windgrace enters the battlefield or attacks, you may put a land card from a graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control. It's kind of cool. So you can take lands from your opponent's graveyard too and put them into the battlefield tapped under your control. You can pay a green and discard a land card. You gain 3 life. You can pay 1 and a red, discard a land card, and draw a card. You can pay 2 and a black, it looks like. Discard a land card. Soul of Windgrace gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. Yeah, this is solid. I could definitely see this going in some kind of Jund ramp deck, Jund mid-range deck, where you've got a lot of land stuff going on. I give it a high rating for both limited and constructed. I think you can do a lot with this. So yeah, it's pretty decent. Let's see here. Yeah, that's a solid card. Might actually be worth going epic and constructed. You know what? I think we'll stick it high. I need to see how it plays out first before I go any higher than that. So we'll stay at high. And I think we are at the end of the multicolored cards with our final mythic, Zur, Eternal Schemer, for a white, a blue, and a black. Legendary creature, human wizard, 1/4 power and toughness, has flying. Enchantment creatures you control have death touch, lifelink, and hexproof. Nice. You can pay 1 and a white. Target non-aura enchantment you control becomes a creature in addition to its other types, and has base power and toughness, each equal to its mana value. Wow, that's pretty good, and I can think of many decks that this card would go in. So, yeah, this is solid. Didn't see a lot of enchantments in this set though. There's the saga cards and stuff. I think this would be tough to build around in limited. I'm gonna give it a mid rating in limited, but I'm gonna give this a high rating for constructed. There's a lot of decks that would benefit from having this card in the deck. Several standard decks that come to mind now that I think of it. Being able to attack with a Hallowed Haunting itself, that would be pretty crazy, and the fact that it would have death touch, lifelink, and hexproof, pretty cool. Yeah, Zur's a good addition. And then in a commander deck, this thing's probably just bonkers. Just going off with a purely enchantment creature deck and enchantment deck, Zur would take it to another level. So I really like this card. Pretty good one. So let's see here. Yep, that does it for multicolored. We're in the home stretch now, so all that's left is artifacts and lands. So I think we'll leave it there for this one. Tune in next time as we cover artifacts, and I should have that video up pretty soon. We'll be able to wrap that up in the next day or so here. So tune in then, and we'll check out some more new cards for Dominaria United. Thanks for checking out the video, everybody. We'll see you next time.